Somewhere in the world's oldest archives, there are maps that describe coastlines no human being should have been able to see, drawn with an accuracy that took us satellites and centuries to match. Some show Antarctica's ice-free bedrock, some chart ocean floors, some place continents exactly where they belong, centuries before any explorer officially discovered them. The 10 maps on this list don't just challenge the history books, they make you wonder whether we've been reading the wrong ones entirely. Let's start at number 10, and pay close attention, because by the time we reach number 1, the map we land on will make everything on this list look like a rough draft. Number 10. The Piri Reis map. In the year 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis assembled a map of the known world from what he described as dozens of older source charts, some of which he claimed traced back to the time of Alexander the Great. The map itself is striking enough. It shows the Atlantic coastline of South America with a precision that rivals modern surveys. But the detail that stops researchers cold is the landmass drawn along the southern edge. It shows a continuous coastline beneath the southern Atlantic, a coastline that matches the subglacial topography of Antarctica with unsettling accuracy. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1818. It wasn't fully mapped beneath its ice sheet until the mid-20th century, using seismic equipment and aerial surveys. Piri Reis drew it in 1513, and he said he was copying older maps. No one has ever satisfactorily explained which maps those were, or who made them, or when. The Ottoman admiral didn't claim credit. That detail matters more than almost anything else on the document. Number 9. The Oronce Fine map. 28 years after Piri Reis in 1531, a French cartographer named Oronce Fine published a world map that placed a massive southern continent at the bottom of the globe, not as a vague theoretical blob, which was common for the era, but as a detailed landmass with mountain ranges, river systems, and what appear to be ice-free coastlines. When researchers in the 20th century overlaid the Fine map onto modern satellite imagery of Antarctica, the fit was close enough to prompt serious academic debate. The river systems he drew correspond to valleys that exist beneath the Antarctic ice sheet today, valleys that have been buried under ice for roughly 6,000 years, based on core sample data. Phineas had no expedition, he had no satellite. He had, by his own account, older source charts whose origins he did not specify. 2 maps, 2 cartographers separated by nearly 3 decades, both pointing to the same impossible southern coastline, and both crediting sources that have never been found. Number 8. The Zeno map. In 1380, a map attributed to the Venetian brothers Antonio and Niccolo Zeno was published, documenting what were claimed to be voyages the brothers took through the North Atlantic in the 1390s, a dating contradiction that researchers have never fully untangled. The map itself covers the northern seas, Scandinavia, and Greenland, and for most of it, you could argue the brothers were simply recording what sailors of the era roughly knew. Then you look at Greenland. The Zeno map draws Greenland's interior topography, mountain ranges, coastal features, the shape of the landmass beneath its surface, with a specificity that should have been impossible. When Charles Hapgood, the American geographer who spent years cross-referencing these anomalous charts, compared the Zeno map against 20th century radar surveys conducted through miles of glacial ice, the correspondence was not vague. The mountain ranges the map suggests align with subglacial features that no human eye has ever directly seen. The Greenland ice sheet is estimated to have formed over 2.5 million years ago. Our species, Homo sapiens, has existed for roughly 300,000 years. The coastline those mountains border has been sealed under ice since long before we were here to look at it. Someone mapped a coastline that has been buried under a mile of ice for longer than our species has existed. Number 7. The Iben Benzara map. In 1487, a cartographer named Iben Benzara produced a map of the Mediterranean and surrounding regions. On its face, it is a navigational chart, the kind of document you might expect from a skilled cartographer of the late 15th century. But certain features don't belong to the 15th century at all. Islands in the Aegean appear with glaciated features, geography consistent with Ice Age conditions that ended roughly 12,000 years ago. Parts of Northern Europe are drawn with coastline details that would only have been accessible before those regions were buried under retreating ice sheets. 2 separate cartographers, different centuries, different hemispheres, both apparently working from source material that predates anything we call civilization. Where are those source maps now? Every map we've covered so far, from Piri Reis in 1513 to Iben Benzara in 1487, credits source charts that have never been found. Do you think those original maps still exist somewhere, buried in an archive, or are they gone forever? Drop your answer in the comments below. Either way, what's coming next makes these four look like warm-up acts. Number 6. The Buache map. In 1737, a French royal geographer named Philippe Buache published a map of the southern polar region. At the time, no human being had ever seen Antarctica. The continent would not be officially sighted for another 83 years. And yet, Buache drew it, not as a single landmass, which is how most theoretical maps of the era handled the vague idea of a southern continent, but as two separate landmasses divided by a sea channel running through the interior. When the map was published, it was largely dismissed. The division seemed absurd. The prevailing assumption was that if a southern continent existed at all, it was one solid mass. Buache's two-piece version looked like the kind of error you'd make working from incomplete or corrupted source material. Then came the 20th century. Seismic surveys conducted beneath the Antarctic ice sheet revealed that Antarctica is, in fact, two distinct landmasses connected by ice, with a subglacial channel running between them. The channel Buache drew matches the subglacial geography with a precision that is difficult to attribute to coincidence. Buache himself was explicit about his method. He stated he was not recording original observations, but extrapolating from ancient source charts whose origins he did not name. For roughly 200 years, the map sat in the category of interesting speculation. The seismic surveys quietly reclassified it as something harder to explain. He was right. No one has explained how. Using only these verified facts, here is the replacement passage written to match the original's tone and style and staying within the word count range. Number 5. The Kobayashi map. In 1907, a Hawaiian newspaper called the Hawaiian Gazette published a story about a world map it claimed was nearly 1,000 years old. The map, drawn on the principle of the Mercator projection, showed the North Pole at the center of a circle containing all the familiar continents: North and South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia. For a document allegedly produced by Chinese Buddhist priests around 900 AD, that alone would be remarkable. But it is not the continents that make people stop. Beyond the outer ring of known landmasses, the map depicts additional territory, land extending past what we would now call Antarctica. Not a vague smudge at the edge of the parchment. Defined coastlines, distinct shapes, land that has no business being on a map from 900 AD because no civilization from that era is known to have reached Antarctica, let alone charted what lies beyond it. The story of how the map came to light only deepens the problem. According to the account published in 1907, the original was discovered hidden in a Buddhist temple in the mountains of central Japan, worm-eaten, barely holding together. Only a tracing of a hand copy survived. The original has never been publicly produced or verified. No one can examine it. No one can date it. The chain of custody runs through hands that cannot be named, across a span of time that cannot be confirmed. What you are left with is a document that either records geography no civilization from 900 AD should have possessed, or a document whose true origins remain completely unknown. In either case, the map should not exist. What comes next moves beyond coastlines entirely, into something that challenges not just who was exploring the world, but how precisely they were measuring it. Number 4. The Dulcert portolan. In 1339, a cartographer named Angelino Dulcert produced a nautical chart of the Mediterranean and Black Sea regions that, by any reasonable measure of the instruments available to him, should not be as accurate as it is. Portolan charts were navigational tools, practical documents used by sailors who needed coastlines they could trust. And Dulcert's is trustworthy. That is the problem. The specific anomaly is longitude. Measuring longitude accurately requires precise timekeeping. You need to know exactly what time it is at a fixed reference point, while simultaneously recording local time at sea. That problem was not solved until John Harrison built his marine chronometer in 1762. Harrison's solution was one of the great technical achievements of the 18th century, and it came 423 years after Dulcert drew his chart. When Charles Hapgood and subsequent analysts ran modern measurements against the Dulcert portolan, they found that the longitudinal error across the entire Mediterranean The full sweep of it, from Gibraltar to the eastern Black Sea coast, is less than half a degree. Modern GPS surveys confirm the coastlines. Less than half a degree of error, without a chronometer, without satellite reference, without any instrument that could theoretically produce that result. What makes this stranger still is that portolan charts as a class appear in the historical record fully formed. They arrive in the 13th century accurate, detailed, and consistent, with no known developmental sequence, no crude early versions, no progression from rough sketch to precise document. Other cartographic traditions leave a trail. You can watch them improve. Portolans simply appear, already correct. No one knows where the first portolan came from. Number 3. The Al-Idrisi World Map. In 1154, a geographer named Muhammad Al-Idrisi completed a world map commissioned by Roger II of Sicily, after 15 years of systematic work compiling geographic accounts from across the known world. The map is oriented with south at the top, a deliberate choice, not an error, and it shows the coastlines of Africa, Asia, and Europe with an accuracy that European cartography would not match for another 3 centuries. But one detail stands apart from everything else on that map. Al-Idrisi placed the source of the Nile in a chain of equatorial lakes deep in Central Africa. European explorers spent centuries searching for that source. John Hanning Speke reached the Great Lakes of Africa in 1858, 700 years after Al-Idrisi drew them in their correct position. The question that has never been answered satisfactorily is this: what sources was Al-Idrisi working from? His own account describes interviews with travelers and the compilation of older geographic records. But no document from the 12th century independently describes those equatorial lakes with the specificity his map requires. 700 years of European exploration to confirm what one cartographer in Sicily apparently already knew. We are now at number 3. Number 1 is still ahead, and it is the entry that has never been satisfactorily answered by anyone who has seriously looked at it. What the next map reveals is not just impossible geography. It is a question about who was working from what, and how far back that chain of knowledge actually goes. Number 2. The Mao Kun map. The Buache is a Chinese military manual compiled around 1621. It is not, on its surface, a mysterious document. It is a practical compendium of military strategy and naval knowledge. But folded inside it is a set of navigational charts attributed to the voyages of Admiral Zheng He, who commanded the largest fleet the ancient world had ever assembled. 317 ships. Some of those vessels reportedly stretched over 400 feet in length, larger than anything European shipbuilders would attempt for another century. Between 1405 and 1433, Zheng He's fleet moved through the Indian Ocean, the Persian Gulf, and along the eastern coast of Africa. The Mao Kun charts document those routes. Then you look at what else the charts appear to show. Portions of the map contain coastline details consistent with the northern coast of Australia and the eastern seaboard of Africa, rendered with a degree of accuracy that predates European charting of those regions by decades. That alone would be significant. But the anomaly runs deeper than the coastlines themselves. The source material Zheng He's cartographers were working from was reportedly not original to his voyages. The charts appear to draw on older records that predate even 1405. And those original records were reportedly ordered destroyed by the Ming court after Zheng He's death, part of a deliberate policy to dismantle China's outward-facing naval ambitions. The charts in the Buache are, in all likelihood, copies of documents that no longer exist. The maps survived. The originals they came from did not. Number 1. The Piri Reis margin note. We have already looked at the map itself, the Antarctic coastline, the South American precision, the source charts Piri Reis claimed traced back to Alexander's era. But the detail that closes this entire list is not on the map. It is in the margin. In his own handwriting in 1513, Piri Reis noted that among his source materials was a map drawn by Christopher Columbus, a map Columbus had used on his Atlantic voyages, and which has never been found. If that map existed, Columbus was not sailing blind into the unknown. He was navigating with prior knowledge of what lay across the Atlantic. And if Columbus had a map, someone made it before him, someone who knew. That thread pulls everything together. The subglacial Antarctic coastlines on the Piri Reis and Phineas maps, the buried Greenland topography on the Zeno map, the Ice Age Aegean features on Iben Benzara's chart, the two-piece Antarctic continent Buache drew from unnamed ancient sources, the portolan charts that arrived in history already accurate, with no developmental trail. Al-Idrisi's equatorial lakes, confirmed 7 centuries later. The Dulcert portolan's longitudinal precision, 400 years before the chronometer that should have made it possible. All of it points in the same direction, not toward one impossible map, but toward a single source, a cartographic tradition sophisticated enough to survey the entire planet, operating at a time we have no name for, leaving behind almost nothing except the faint impressions it pressed into the copies that survived. We do not know who they were, we do not know when they lived, or what ended them. We have 10 maps that passed through 100 hands across 1,000 years, each one carrying a fragment of something we have not yet been able to name. The maps are real. The civilization that made the originals is not in any history book we have. Subscribe if that unsettled you, and watch the next video on screen.